Hi, welcome everybody. We'll just give everyone a second just to join us, and then we'll start the presentation. Right, we'll just wait a couple more moments just in case anyone else is joining us, and then we'll start the presentation. Okay, so I think we've got enough people now. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And this is a session aimed at university counsellors, just to give you an overview of the UK and why your students should consider the UK as a study destination, and also consider studying the creative arts in the UK. My name is Jenny Oxley. I'm from Leeds Arts University, and I'm joined by Adrienne Marriott-Mills, who is from Falmouth University, Katie Douglas, who is from the Liverpool Institute for the Performing Arts, and Maria Cabero, who is from the Arts University, Bournemouth. And we are just 4 of the 8 creative universities that are taking part in the Creative UK sessions that have been running today and tomorrow. And at the end of the presentation, we will show you the schedule of the events that are happening tomorrow, so you can check out those events as well. So just to give you a little bit of an outline of this session. So we're going to cover why study art and design in the UK. So why you should consider, or your students should consider the UK as their study destination, and why they should consider art and design. Understanding the UK system. So we'll just give you a bit of an overview of the UK system, because of course it is quite different to many education systems around the world. We'll touch on the costs of studying in the UK, and then we'll give you an overview of how to navigate the UK admissions system. And then we'll give you a few resources for counsellors as well, which will hopefully help you to advise your students about the UK. So first off, just to set the scene, I just want to explain just how important the creative industries are to the UK and to the global economy. In the UK alone, the creative industries generates over £101 billion every year in revenue for the UK economy. So that's an incredible amount. And when you break that down, that's actually over £12 million per hour that the creative industries contribute to the UK economy. That's 3 million jobs and 12% of the UK's total industry. So, I mean, when you think about the UK and you think about our contribution to the global economy, I really do think the creative industries is our best industry. It's what we're most known for. If you think about the UK fashion and music industries, film and television, gaming industries, the UK really does pack a punch above its weight. 87% of creative jobs are considered to be future-proof, which is huge when you think about the generation of students coming through now. So creative jobs, if you think about the way that the global economy is moving, 2 out of every 5 jobs that we currently have will be redundant within 20 years. And that's mainly because of the change and the shift in the way that we all work. And your students will really spearhead that change. So the creative industries are the future, because of course we all need creatives in order to stimulate that economy. And in the UK, every year, there are 270,000 applications for creative courses, which translates to about 6 applications per place. So it is a competitive area of study. So hopefully that's set the scene a little bit. And now what we'd like to do is just to give you a short video, which again, I think explains just how important the creative industries are to the UK.
There's a deep desire in us to make pictures. I mean, they've been drawing for 30,000 years. The teaching of drawing is teaching people to look. That's what it's doing.
It was really when I was at art school that I started to see the relationship between history, philosophy, politics, and art. Prior to that, I thought that art was just making pretty pictures. Actually, art is related to, life.
Teach art in the same way you can teach French. French exists whether you do it or not. But when you're doing art, the center of doing art is in yourself. Most of the literate subjects do not ask that of them. So this develops an entirely different realm of skill.
Creativity is critical thinking. And without it, how are you going to really open up and ask harder questions? And art opens all of those kind of passages and possibilities to think beyond what we already know.
In a child's education, that doors need to be open to other universes.
Jenny, I think that the sound on the video just stopped for some reason. I cannot hear it myself, and I think some people are also commenting they stop hearing the sound.
Jenny, you're on mute.
Stimulating, exciting, consoling than looking at a brilliant painting.
Is that better?
In school.
Yes, it is. Maybe if you can pass it a couple of minutes back.
Because I think art teaches you to deal with the world.
Yeah, take it to a little bit.
People
Yeah.
who are not going to be artists is giving them the opportunity to build certain aspect of themselves that otherwise will be either ignored, undeveloped, or repressed.
It's all about kids finding out who they are, and they're all different.
You can be whatever you want to be. It's something that art certainly taught me. It can access a part of your brain, body, spirit, mind that nothing else can.
Nothing is more stimulating, exciting, consoling than looking at a brilliant painting.
Art in schools shouldn't be sidelined. I think it should be right there, right up in the front, because art teaches you to deal with the world around you. It's the oxygen that actually makes all the other subjects breathe. There's a great quote by John Ruskin: "Art shows us what it is to be human." And really, that's why art should be on the curriculum.
Sorry about that. So hopefully you managed to catch the video there. Sorry about the technical problems there. So just to finish off my section then, I just wanted to talk about the graduate immigration route as well, which we're really pleased was introduced in the UK from this summer. And it really has been really interesting to a lot of international students here. So the graduate immigration route to immigration now means that graduates can stay in the UK for up to 2 years after they have finished their studies. And the main condition of that is that they successfully complete their course of study in the UK, and they can then apply for this visa. The visa enables them to work or to look for work. So they don't need a job offer in order to be able to apply for this visa. So it really is a lot more flexible than other immigration routes. And the really good thing for creative graduates is that this visa means that they can work as a self-employed person, or they can freelance. So of course, that's really attractive to creative graduates. And the visa allows them to work in any sector and at any level. So there are no salary restrictions with this visa. So it's something to make your students aware of if they would like to consider this after completing their studies in the UK. And I'll now hand over to Maria.
Thank you, Jenny. Yes, I think there were some issues there with the sound in the video. So if you guys couldn't hear it properly, it's okay. We can send you the links to the video afterwards if you want to use it as a resource or to look at with other members of your teams in your school. So just email us and let us know, and we happily send you that link in there. You know, you never can control those things with technical issues, can you? So going into a little bit more details about how it's like to study in the UK. We understand the majority of you here today are counsellors from schools or staff members from different schools, and you deal with the students at many different levels. And one of the things that students obviously will be concerned before going into higher education is what type of teaching and learning they're going to be getting from those institutions. So we put together a few slides just to give you a really good understanding and overview of how in general UK universities, or specifically creative universities, work. So starting with the teaching and the learning, all of the degree programs that we teach at creative level will have a very practical side in them. There is a lot of hands-on and studio-based learning that happening on the daily basis with the students. And the reason for that is because quite simple, the creative industry works in that way. You need to have undergraduate students that have the skills that the industry currently need. And for that, we need students to be able to work in workshops, to have individual and group tutorials, but also do a lot of project work as well in collaboration with each other, because that's exactly how the industry works nowadays. And I'm sure, you know, we liaise with a lot of you as counsellors on how important developing teamwork as a soft skill is in the school. So at a higher education level, we sort of develop that collaboration across the courses from the very early stages of any undergraduate courses. The majority of the staff that will be teaching your students coming into a creative university in the UK will be not just teachers or professors with a level of expertise in their subjects. They will also be creative practitioners. And this is something that is very common across most universities. We will have a staff that is actually people still working within the creative industries or have worked for many years in the creative industries. So you can imagine the way that they deliver the curriculum and the way that they teach their students. Again, it's in a very practical setting. Work experience and study abroad opportunities are across all the universities in most of the courses that we offer, so students can also embrace that sort of opportunities to study at a global level if they want. And obviously public exhibitions shows a lot of display of the work of our students. Something that I think most creative universities we have in common is that we are so proud of the work that our students do every year. We are very impressed with what they do every year, and we want to exhibit, we want to showcase. And so many of you have, like some of us have like summer shows. We have a lot of exhibitions in collaboration with artists. We do a lot of things out there to put the name and the work of our students in the map, even before they graduate. And then if we go into the next slide, so this gives you a really good idea of the teaching. With regards to facilities and what the students will be gaining from accessing this higher education at a creative level, is that they will be just attending classrooms. This wouldn't be an environment where there is just a classroom or access to a library or access to some computer rooms. They will be opening their opportunities to actually work in dedicated workshops within the subjects they are studying, and also with other subjects as well. So the workshops are open to all of the students normally in the campus. So students with from architecture, interior design, maybe working on the same workshops with illustrators, graphic designers. So you can imagine the amount of interaction that's happening and the amount of projects that they can work together and learn from each other through that collaboration. So it's a lot of very much based on the industry standard. We're trying to, and this is something that UK universities do year after year, we're trying to invest and ensure that our softwares and our equipment are really at the same level than what the industry is using nowadays. So our students are ready to go and work for that industry once they graduate. They are very much up to date with all that. Of course, there is a lot of studio space, so students can have the relevant space and time that they need to work on their own projects individually, but also in groups. They have access to specialist materials and machinery. And something that we can't forget is that being a creative university and being part of this support of, you know, creative careers for the 21st century, which is what students are looking at nowadays, it's something that all UK universities and creative universities support very much. But we also understand the importance of understanding the traditional and where those art and design concepts come from and how what equipment they've been using in the past. So we give students also that sort of overview to understand how things change with time, and give them the opportunity to practice with that. I think I put this example in with the group this morning as well. For example, in our university, we have a really old print machine. It's from the 19th century. It's a jewel, really, what we got in there. And it's still operative. We make students use it and practice with that so they can understand how the printing industry, if it's printing, for example, what they're doing in that specific time, has changed, and they understand and figure it out, the evolution of all that. So there is a lot of workshops, inductions, a lot of specialist technicians and demonstrators that actually will work with the students very close when they have their access to those workshops as well. If we go into the next slide, please, Jenny, we also going to cover a little bit about career preparation. So one of the things that you are doing very well so with your students right now is to help them and support them on that journey from finishing their high schools and coming into higher education. It's a journey that they need guidance, they need help, and they need support. So in the same way, we're doing that at a higher education level with our students when they are doing an undergraduate program. We need to nurture and we need to ensure that we give them the right guides that they need in order to prepare themselves for the next step, which is getting a job and getting into the career position they want it to be. So all the universities will have a very strong area where we support the students, giving them advice, guidance. We help them to take part in events from day one so they can start to develop those networking connections that they need in order to go and progress within the creative industries. So there is a lot of that happening, especially obviously on the last year before they graduate, because they need support with things like preparing their portfolio before they apply for jobs, which is a very different portfolio to the one that your students will be preparing now for their access to university. They need help with their interviews, they need help with the letters they need to send for jobs applications and things like that. So in the same way, your students can be sure that if they come into a creative institution, they're going to be having that guidance and support to get them into the next step of their higher education, which is getting a job. That's what they're doing this for. And then just to finish, just to let you know, because obviously as a counselors, we understand you work with your students at many different levels, and it's, the education side is obviously extremely important, but it's also really important, especially on the current times that we are all living, that students are looked after at many other levels. We need to look after their health, their well-being. We need to ensure that the students have access to an environment where they're going to be able to just flourish and just become part of a community that is going to thrive and make them really successful. So that's something that creative universities also put in place. Jenny, if you move to the next slide, please. So we have a student support of all different types, whether they are international students, whether they need help with their pre-departure before they arrive, for example, whether they need support with their English language, whether they need support to get them into the community and the connections with other students. That's something that all UK universities got very, very right. And we have great student unions, which are those students that put together a lot of societies, clubs, social events and things where students can interact and they can develop those friendships that are going to be super important as much as everything else, to be sure that they have a great experience in university and they are in a good environment where they feel confident and they feel good to study, to learn and to develop as a creative people, but also as person. So I think with that, I pass you over now to my colleague Adrian, who's going to cover more about the degree programs.
Thank you so much, Maria. So in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, students generally follow a 3-year undergraduate degree program, and almost all, at least in the creative sector, degrees will lead to the award of a Bachelor of Arts with honours or Bachelor of Science with honours. Full-time study rather than part-time or flexi-time is the norm in the UK for most undergraduates, and students are expected to commit to a continuous program of study for the entirety of their degree. In Scotland, it is a little different. Undergraduate degrees are generally 4 years long, and they're designed to give students a broader, more flexible education. So in Scotland, they allow students to try a range of subjects before they specialise. So if you're a student, even if your students know exactly what they want to do, at Scottish universities, they can study additional subjects as part of their degree, and this will add depth to their education. There are also joint degree programs that join 2 subjects in a single degree. Those are available at some UK universities, but usually not in every single subject area. And a joint degree is one where the students study 2 different subjects at the same time, and then these are combined at the end into a single qualification. These degrees do not usually take any longer than to do a single subject degree, and they have an equal focus on both subjects which are studied. A combined honours degree is similar, except the students are studying core modules from 2 or more subject areas, but they focus on one subject area in greater detail. So this is a little bit like a major and a minor in the US system. And then there, you may hear the word dual degree as well. These are actually quite unusual degrees, but they are starting to exist more and more. So doing a dual degree allows students to earn 2 degrees at the same time from 2 universities which are in cooperation to offer one program of study. So this is normally by undertaking some UK study and some study at a university in another country. The moment these tend to be focused on business, sciences, or languages, but the number of the subject areas that they're offered in is expanding all the time. These are also sometimes referred to as a double degree. You may hear them referred to as that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So many international students who progress to university in the UK are able to do that directly from school, provided their level of English is high enough and their school leaving qualifications are considered by the university that is receiving them as being equivalent to A levels, or you may also hear the word level 3 qualification. So some qualifications from some countries, however, are not deemed to be of A-level standard by some universities. And so students who want to progress to those universities who have those qualifications need to take a foundation year or a foundation program as a bridge before they can apply to a UK university. Now, unfortunately, every single UK university has their own entry qualifications, and they have their own qualifications that they're prepared to accept as A-level equivalent. So what you need to do is to work with your students to investigate early what the universities they are interested in are asking for. The good news is that all UK universities are very transparent about what academic qualifications and evidence of sufficient English attainment they're prepared to accept. And you should be able to find the information that you need very easily on university websites, or you should be able to ask for it and it will be supplied. It is not a one-size-fits-all. And, you know, while some universities may happily accept a particular qualification for direct entry, another university 2 miles down the road offering a degree by exactly the same name may not accept it at all. And of course, the grades that universities are looking for in the entry qualifications will also vary for both the academic element and the English element. Next slide, please. So an international foundation year, or as you may have heard it called foundation, is a university preparation course, and it's designed to improve students' English language and academic study skills before they begin the first year of their chosen undergraduate degree. A foundation diploma in art and design is a similar course, but it's mostly aimed at UK students who don't need to work on their English, but some international students who already have the required level of English will undertake these type of qualifications. And these types of qualifications are taught by universities, colleges, and other private providers. Some students elect voluntarily to take a foundation year because they want some extra support and time to get used to studying in the UK. And although they are referred to as a foundation year, you will find programs available with at different lengths and at different entry points throughout the year. And foundation programs usually center around subject clusters, such as arts, business, or sciences generally. And this allows students to tailor their foundation course to suit the degree program that they eventually want to study in the future. And for students who want to undertake a creative degree, undertaking a creative foundation program will help them to develop their portfolio or their audition repertoire, and they'll need this to apply to the university of their choice. So doing a foundation program doesn't usually give guaranteed entry to the course or university of a student's choice, but there are some programs that do guarantee progression or offer articulated progression if certain requirements are met. Again, this varies so much that further research is always needed. So just if you could just pop back a bit. So this slide here will help you to understand the various progression routes that might be available for your students. So the first line shows the progression routes that an international foundation or an integrated foundation year student may follow. So an integrated foundation is a slightly different proposition to a foundation year. Foundation years are bridging programs taught at a mix of A-level standard and university level work, whereas an integrated foundation year is taught entirely at university level. So this means that the entry requirements for an integrated foundation year can be higher than a foundation year. And integrated foundation years are usually open not just to international students, but to domestic ones as well. And the main advantage of an integrated foundation year is that students know that they have a place on their degree of choice and they don't have to apply to university during their foundation year. And so they're studying at their university of choice from day one. They're making friends there, they're settling in, and they're becoming part of that community. So these are great for students who've been out of the learning environment for some time or picking up a subject which maybe they haven't studied before, or they just want to take a little longer to complete their degree, which is, you know, absolutely fine. So once students have completed their integrated foundation year, they go straight with no further questions asked onto the main degree course, and they don't have to make another application. And when they graduate, it's as though they've been on the 3-year course. So the important thing to understand is that foundation years are a lower level bridging course to university, during which students can decide if they, which university they want to progress to and what they want to study. But an integrated foundation year is a higher level of study involving a commitment to the 4-year degree. So on the second line, you can see the pathway a student will take if they're able to enter university straight away. The third line shows the pathway they'll take if they enroll on a course with a placement, or you might have heard the word sandwich here, or if they elect to do a study abroad. And then lastly, an integrated master's program allows students to commit to both an undergraduate and a master's degree at one entry point. But quite often the students will need to obtain certain grades to progress to the master's, or they'll have to have undertaken particular optional higher level modules at undergraduate level in order to progress. So you can move on now. And I mentioned that the Scottish undergraduate degree system earlier. So this image shows the structure of the Scottish degree, which allows students to undertake 3 subjects of focus in the first year, reducing to 2 in the second, and focusing entirely on one subject for the final 2 years. Next slide. Right, so there are a lot of differences between studying in the USA and studying in the UK. Making comparisons between the UK and the US higher education systems in terms of retention and completion, I don't really think it's necessarily a useful metric because it's not a like-for-like comparison. But what I would say is that in the UK, students generally apply to a named degree and commit to a defined course of study. So there can be optional study modules within their learning program, but generally the end learning and achievement point is defined both in terms of learning outcomes and time commitment. The USA system, on the other hand, as you're probably aware, can be more flexible and not necessarily directly linear learning journey, often with more of a modular credit-based experience, and transfer between institutions is much more common in the US than in the UK, where it really is an exceptional circumstance. There's a really strong correlation between degree completion and having a strongly defined learning structure. And the system of funding and program design in the UK strongly encourages students to complete their program of study rather than signing up for classes with no declared major or endpoint. That just doesn't happen. And almost all undergraduate courses in the UK are full-time with really no option for part-time study. And again, this can help push students through the completion pipeline. So it will be up to you when you're advising your students about their higher education choices to assess what kinds of pressures they're likely to face on their learning journey and what style of education structure is going to work best for them. And I always say I'd be really happy to take this conversation offline as to the differences between the two experiences because it's a huge subject and it really is worthy of further exploration if you're interested. And lastly, almost all universities in the UK offer student accommodation for first-year students and often for second and third, either in university-owned accommodation or in privately owned residence-style accommodation that the universities have arrangements with. Unlike some US institutions, students are not obliged to live in halls of residence, but it is still really popular. And most universities will guarantee accommodation for all international students. Unlike US universities, most UK students who live in halls opt to make their own food, and we call that self-catering accommodation. And private rooms are the norm, and rooms with private bathrooms are the norm in newer accommodation blocks. Most halls are mixed gender, but most universities offer living options such as single-sex, meat-free, alcohol-free, quiet accommodation, etc. And accommodation is generally offered at a range of price points, so there is something to suit all pockets. And I will pass it over now.
Thank you, Adrienne. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the costs of attendance for a UK education. Each institution does set their own tuition fees, so it will vary by institution to institution. And some courses will have a higher cost than other courses. Generally, the more kind of facility intensive or equipment intensive courses, so for example, science courses, they can tend to be a bit more expensive. So your students will have to check the cost of attendance for each institution because, as I said, they do set their own tuition fees. And when I talk about tuition fees, we are talking about just tuition fees. The living expenses are normally a separate consideration. Degree programmes are typically 3 years long in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, of course 4 years in Scotland. But this does mean that your students would get their qualification completed in 3 years. And generally, tuition fee costs in the UK can be comparable to out-of-state tuition in the US, just to give you an idea. Most universities in the UK will accept US funding options. So for example, students could submit their FAFSA, they can apply for Sally May loans or the GI Bill, or I think sometimes called Veterans Association funding. So all of our universities are eligible to administer US funding options. So again, this can help your students consider how they are going to fund their studies. Each university will also be responsible for their own scholarship programme. So once your student is interested in a university, it's definitely worth checking the website of each individual university to find out what financial aid options they have. Normally, the process is students would apply for a place to study on the course, and then afterwards would apply for a scholarship. That's the normal process, although of course it might vary from university to university. Scholarships are usually merit-based. So for example, students might be invited to submit a separate application explaining why they should get a scholarship. And sometimes for creative universities, the portfolio will also be taken into account as well. Alumni awards, for example, at my university, if a student completed an undergraduate degree and then progressed to postgraduate study, we would then give that student an alumni award, which is in the form of a tuition fee discount. And again, some universities will also have sports scholarships, but it is definitely worth, like I said, checking the websites of each individual university to find out what funding options they have. If your students wish to fund their studies using direct loans or Sally May, then they would go through the same process to apply for that funding as they would at a US university. So they would submit the FAFSA, and then the university will get in touch with a loan letter confirming the amounts they are able to borrow. And of course, all of our universities will display the total costs of expected costs of attendance on our website. I think now I will hand over to Katie.
Thank you, Jenny. So where do you sign your students up? There are a number of ways that you can apply to UK schools. The vast majority of UK students will be compelled to apply via the University and Colleges Admissions Service, or UCAS is the acronym it's known by. And this will often be the case for your international students as well. However, there can be flexibility for international students that may not be available for UK students. And sometimes you can apply directly to the institution. And some institutions will also accept the Common App. Now, as to which is best, it will depend on various factors. For example, is the student applying to a number of UK schools, in which case UCAS is going to be a good option for them, because that will allow them to keep all their prospective applications in one place, and the tracking is interconnected. If they're only applying to one UK school, it might be easy for them to add it onto the Common App if that school accepts it, or it might be, most effective for them to focus all their attention on that school in a direct application, which does show the school a very focused level of interest, and so that can be a good option as well. But some schools will only have one or two of those options. Next slide, please, Jenny. So there are some key dates to be aware of with UCAS. The main one is the regular UCAS application deadline, which this year is January the 26th. So make a note of that, because it's usually January the 15th, but it's been moved the last couple of years. So if students apply by that date, they are given equal consideration. So it doesn't matter whether they apply on the 1st of September or the 20th of January, they're given equal consideration up until that point in the schedule. There are some later deadlines specifically for art and design courses, so check in case that applies at the school the student is looking at. The 30th of June is the kind of final deadline before clearing starts, and clearing is the allocation of places which have either not been filled by applicants at that point, or applicants who have not met the conditions of their offer. So they're places that are kind of still unexpectedly available later in the year. There are some great opportunities in clearing. This is not just a a scrape in the barrel situation. It's simply that things change, capacities change, and you can often apply through clearing and get places that you would never have expected to be available. When applying via UCAS, you apply for a maximum of 5 courses, and there is a fee for that, which is £25. If a student is only applying for 1 course, it costs £20. So it really is worthwhile putting a couple of choices on there if a student is going to go the UCAS route. As I mentioned, equal consideration given if deadlines are met. And universities don't know where else you've applied at the application stage unless you give that away in your personal statement. For example, saying how much you want to live in London and applying to a school in Liverpool. We're going to know we're not your first choice if you do that. Okay, next slide, please. So there are 6 sections within the UCAS application, and it's all online, of course. It used to be paper back when I think when Jenny and I did it, it was certainly on paper. But 6 sections. The first one fairly obvious: personal details, addresses, gender, funding arrangements, nationality, all the things you'd expect to see on an application form for pretty much anything. The 5 course choices, and they're all listed on UCAS, so you can find the correct course codes and everything there. Education history. So this is obviously what a candidate has done at school, but it could be wider than that. It might include, one-off workshops in a particular field. It might include like extracurricular classes. And if the qualification that you're looking for isn't listed there, there is always an other option, and that will happen sometimes with international qualifications. The personal statement is exactly the same for all of the courses, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about that section, particularly in a moment. And also there is a reference requirement. Again, some flexibility there. Sometimes you can contact the school and discuss whether a reference is required, and there is an option to tick to say you've agreed that one isn't required. This is sometimes the case, particularly for international students. It might be because you've been out of education for a while, or it could be something as simple as the referee the student wants to use doesn't speak English, so it's quite difficult for them. So it isn't always required, but you can ask. Next slide, please. So that personal statement is only 4,000 characters or 47 lines. This is not a particularly extended essay question, the like of which students might be preparing for US schools, for example. So you're going to want to keep it very focused. It's probably not worth wasting a line on a music program saying, I have been singing since I was 3, because so is everybody else who's applying to music programs. So I would keep it very up to date, very focused on the field or the area that the student wants to study. Bear in mind that it is 5 different courses. So if you have got a backup subject because you're worried that you won't get accepted onto an actor training, it's going to show when you're talking all about your great love of theatre, and an admissions office is looking at an application to a history degree or an engineering degree. It's going to show if it's not in the same field. Obviously, some breadth is expected. For example, you might find students who've applied for music and music technology. That's not unusual in itself. Try and get a little bit of useful information in there about the type of work the student's been doing, the experiences they've had. They can talk about their work experience as well. We don't expect students just finishing high school to have extensive professional experience in the creative and performing arts. However, we are really interested in opportunities that student has created or taken that weren't laid out for them at school, because that does demonstrate a spirit of enterprise, which bodes quite well for their ability to thrive in a university environment. And the reference I already mentioned, didn't I, that it's not necessarily compulsory. Next slide, please. So UCAS is, tell you a little bit more about it. It's the organisation responsible for connecting students to UK higher education. So you can use UCAS to research courses, universities and colleges. You can use it to read blogs written by international students, find open days and virtual events. You can download UCAS publications from there. You can clearly and transparently see academic entry requirements. And the student makes and tracks their application through that platform. And there is also an option to give parents nominated access as well, if parents want to stay quite on top of that. As the student progresses through their admissions period, they accept a first choice, and they accept a second choice, which is called their insurance choice, which automatically kicks in if they don't meet the conditions of that first choice school. But if that happens, it's always worth contacting the school and saying, I've just not quite got the GPA that you asked for. Will you still take me? And sometimes the answer to that might be yes. And so although it's very true that UK admissions requirements are very transparent when it comes to the academic, there also can be room for flexibility, particularly in creative subjects. And that's because the academic requirements are only one part of the holistic way that the applicant is being assessed. They're also being looked at for their potential to sustain a career in the creative arts. And not everything about their school performance is going to show their potential, if you like. So next slide, please. The personal statement and reference should demonstrate the suitability to the course, the motivation and dedication, relevant skills, knowledge and experience gained from education, work and extracurricular activities. And this is very crucial, understanding the demands of the course and that they will be a good fit for the university. For example, we have a applied theatre and community drama course, which is all about creating theatre with and for specific communities. And it's a course that trains facilitators rather than performers in the first instance. The number of personal statements you read where people have applied to that course talking about how they want to be on stage and they want to perform and they want to act, that shows that they're not fully aware of the course that they've applied for. So it is really, really important to try and manage the way that they demonstrate their understanding of the courses that they've applied for without making any individual school seem like it's not the first choice. So it is quite a political kind of skill really to craft a really good personal statement. Top tip is that there is no spell check or grammar check within the UCAS platform. So good writing ability is helpful. It's not everything. Not all students are great at that stuff. It doesn't mean they're not fantastic creatives, but it is worth writing it up in Word or whatever software you use and then cutting and pasting it into UCAS just to take the anxiety out of spotting a typo further down the line. Next slide, please. So we've talked a lot about UCAS, but really for these creative subjects, it's not going to be everything. In many cases, it'll be the supplementary materials that will be equally, if not more important than the UCAS application. So you can expect to possibly be asked to complete a supplementary application form. This might be a form that you complete, or more commonly now it is an online platform where you submit additional information and answer questions more directly pertaining to the course that you've applied for. And that is because that UCAS personal statement can be a very blunt tool. For performance courses, music, dance, acting, you're going to expect an audition, and that can be a multi-stage process. And there is a portfolio session that we'll cover a little bit of that tomorrow, I think, possibly today. Jenny will confirm that at the end. For subjects like art, design, graphic design, animation, architecture, you're going to be looking at a portfolio. And quite often you'll find that there is an interview that goes hand in hand with that audition or portfolio requirement. So it is a many-step admission process for these types of subjects. But that's great because it means it's not all about that GPA. It's not all about those standardized tests. It is also about the students' real life creative work, because that's so important going forward for them. It's probably a good idea not to swamp an admissions office with additional material until you have been invited to submit it. So don't fill in a UCAS and then immediately put a portfolio into somebody's inbox, because the UCAS is the first step. You don't know if you're going to get past that to the request for a portfolio or an audition. If you do get past it, there may be specific guidelines or a specific formula that the school wants you to follow. And also it's just it's just really helpful to us who are working admissions to stagger that process, to go, okay, now we're requesting additional information from these people. So yeah, please help us out with that. Next slide, please. So there may be a UCAS points tariff. And the interesting thing about UCAS points tariffs is that when it comes to international qualifications, they don't always have one, which means that universities can create their own and can use and value academic qualifications in slightly different ways, which is something that we touched on earlier in the presentation. Your university should make this clear. If in doubt, ask. Many universities are test flexible, but it's not all of them. Some will accept a US high school diploma as an acceptable entry requirement straight into a BA or a Bachelor of Sciences. Some won't. Some will require SATs, ACTs, APs. More often, what we see is a combination of those with some minimum grades required perhaps, but you need to check it out if it's not immediately obvious to you. Their admissions and international officers will definitely have an answer that is clearly defined. Particularly for highly creative subjects, cannot emphasize this enough, academics are not everything. Academics may get you to the smaller pool that are asked to submit further information, but the panels that are looking at auditions and that are looking at that are listening to demos and looking at people's design work, they are really all about that work. They want to see the candidate's potential to sustain a career in the creative industries, and high school algebra probably doesn't tell them that. Their ability to talk about their work, to engage with like-minded professionals, to visualize the industry and how they might fit into it, all of that is really, really useful in determining the candidate's suitability. And they're also, of course, looking to see whether that candidate is going to grow and thrive creatively and as a person within that learning environment. And none of that is conveyed by academic results. So it really is just the first step in the assessment process. Next slide, please. So I've already mentioned a few times checking with the university's international office, and they have a really good knowledge of international qualifications. They're also highly skilled to talk to you about things like visa requirements and differences between one country's education system and the UK's education system. I noticed we've got a few attendees from the EU. Obviously, a lot's changed for those students with Brexit and visas. Your university's international officers know a lot about this. They've handled the process for the first time this year. It's gone surprisingly smoothly for the UKVI, I have to say. So ask us all about that. Other resources are UCAS itself, which we touched on earlier, and ukcaesar.org.uk, which is absolutely invaluable to universities, students, counsellors, teachers. They have all the information on absolutely every aspect of being an international student in the UK, from things like healthcare through to immigration, through culture shock and just that kind of experience of transition your whole life from one place to another. And there are blogs on there. There's probably not a week goes by where I don't look at UK CSER, and I've been working in international admissions for around 15 years. So it's still really, really useful to me. Next slide. So we're now going to move on to the portion of the presentation where each of us is going to tell you a little bit about our own specific institution. So mine is the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, or LIPA, as it's known. And that picture there is our waterfront in Liverpool. It's a dock area. And this really is your stage, whether it's for the performing arts or those who make performance possible, which is how we refer to the backstage courses at LIPA. We were co-founded in 1996 by Sir Paul McCartney, and we're really very cutting edge in these vocational programs with this industry focus, which is now, a much broader model across the sector, which is fantastic. If it works, it works. We continue to be very industry focused, responding to what employers and organizations are looking for, and ensuring that our programs give our graduates that skill, that knowledge, that interpersonal ability to progress and to create A graduate from LIPA is as likely to set up their own theatre company as they are to work solely as a performer. So it's really about fostering entrepreneurialism and giving people the skills and the confidence to do what they love, but also to be able to market themselves as a product, to be able to access those opportunities that provide remuneration, not just a creative outlet. We are probably the smallest school represented here today, with around 1,000 students, which to us feels like a lot because it used to be about 750, 800. And 25% of those are international. So 1 in 4 students that you meet at LIPA is from a country other than the UK. So it is a very international environment. We have over 50 nationalities represented. The largest groups of those after the Brits are the Americans and the Norwegians. And possibly Spain is coming up hard on the tails of those now. We have quite a lot of students from South Korea, but really all over Europe and all over the Americas as well. We have courses in acting, applied theatre, dance, design, technology in relation to theatre and performance, filmmaking, arts management, popular music, and sound technology. And it really is about Liverpool being that stage for being a creative. It is a city that is, it's the world capital of pop, produced more #1 singles than any other city. It has a plethora of festivals and arts organisations, including the Liverpool Biennial. We have the Tate Liverpool, which are the creators of that video that we showed you earlier on in the presentation. It's a city that has a huge appetite for the arts, and it's in a very kind of grassroots kind of way. It's not just something that is treated as a highbrow pursuit. So it really is, you can't talk about LIPA without talking about how amazing Liverpool is. It's also the cheapest city to be a student in the UK, so definitely worth checking out. I'll hand you over now so my colleagues can tell you a little bit about their skills as well. Thank you.
So Falmouth University has a history going back to 1902. So we've been delivering creative education for over 120 years. We're quite a small university for the UK. We have about 5,500 students. And last year, the average class size was just under 18. The university is based in Cornwall, and you may have heard of Cornwall. It was the location of the G7 at the beginning of the autumn. The university is based over 2 closely located campuses. So our Falmouth campus, which is the original Falmouth School of Art, is located in historical subtropical gardens, and it's 10 minutes walk from a beautiful beach. And the Penryn campus is located up in the hills in parkland overlooking the sea. And the seaside town of Falmouth offers small shops and restaurants, a working harbour, and beautiful beaches all around. So we offer over 50 creative undergraduate degrees and about 30 postgraduate degrees. The university offers studio-based learning with fantastic facilities, all at industry standard. And all of our students have access to all of our facilities all of the time, year round. All of our academics have worked in the industry that they're teaching around, and most are still practicing their craft, and they're really happy to share their contacts with students. So our students are undertaking live briefs and industry placements and commissions as part of their learning program. And the university regularly hosts guest lecturers from industry to lead commercial projects, and they come for longer to undertake artistic residencies. So the students can learn over a period of time from people who are at the forefront of the industries that they're interested in. And employability is built into every course that we offer, and our students leave us with an industry-ready portfolio of creative work ready to launch their careers. We're very focused in the 3rd year on launching careers. We're also extremely focused on sustainability, and that's built into all of our courses and also the way we live on campus. We're organized into 9 departments, or creative hubs, as we like to call them, and we encourage our students to collaborate not just with the students in their department, but also across the university. So the university has an international student body at the moment of about 15%, and we make our international students extremely welcome, and they are very well supported. So we offer airport pickup for all arriving international students. We guarantee accommodation for them. We offer free term time English classes. We have a thriving international and nationally oriented clubs and societies, and we do everything we can to make sure that our students, all of our students, and including our international students, feel very much at home and thrive.
Okay, over to me. So I am from Leeds Arts University, which, as you might guess, is based in the city of Leeds, and we are found in the north of England. So we are the only specialist arts university in the north of England. And we were established in 1846, so we are over 170 years old, which we are extremely proud of. Again, we're quite small, we have around 2,000 students altogether. And as we are a specialist arts university, then it is a creative community. So your students would be joining a creative community where everyone is an artist or a designer. And we are extremely supportive. So our academics are all professionals in their field as well. A lot of them are also practicing in their own field. And we have a very open door policy. So students get to know their tutors really well, and they really do get a lot of personal time and attention. And I think this is why we were voted #1 for student support in the What Unique Student Choice Awards in 2020. So it then follows, we have extremely high student satisfaction and retention rates. So some of our famous alumni include Damien Hirst, who of course is the world's highest paid living artist, which must be a very nice place to be. And Barbara Hepworth, who is a very famous sculptor. We have the Barbara Hepworth Gallery just down the road. And then the Henry Moore, we have the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, again, just down the road, where you can walk around on a weekend afternoon and see his works. So Leeds is a very exciting, rapidly growing city with a thriving art scene. So there's loads going on. We have 5 universities altogether based in Leeds. So it really is a very student-focused city. We have a lower cost of living than the south of England. So everything is very student-focused, and this is why we were voted the UK's best place to be a student. All of our facilities are industry standard. We have £20 million worth of investment completed in 2019, and 92% of our graduates are in work or further study 6 months after finishing their course, because again, employability is built into everything we do.
Thank you, Jenny. I have a quick introduction about AUB, Arts University Bournemouth, as well for you, but I'm very conscious that we are actually running out of time already. So appreciate you guys are still online after we over the hour. I think we have some questions in the chat box that people probably wanted to hear an answer. So I'm going to jump actually the presentation from my uni. You got some details about us in there. You can check in our website or talk to me any other time. I try to reply to some of the questions you have in the chat box. I don't know if my colleagues wanted to give any answers to those as well before you guys go. One of the questions from Janet was about the foundation. She wanted to understand a little bit more about what is really the foundation in terms of, the artistic skills, and whether when it's recommended for students to take either a foundation level or a degree level, when they should apply for one or the other one. So from my perspective, Janet, students could have already the level to apply directly for a BA program, but that doesn't mean that they will be successful on the application. It may be that those skills that they are showing in their portfolio are still not strong enough to get a place into the undergraduate program. It could be that there are skills perhaps that are not working throughout the idea development in the way that we want it, or perhaps there is not enough research or inspirational work on their portfolio, or perhaps the mark of making is not following enough examples of media or materials, or there could be a lot of different things why the portfolio is not there yet. There are situations when students will have their marks from the schools, national curriculum, or whatever they are doing, that they require to be doing a foundation first. But for those students that already having all the entry requirements to apply for the undergraduate, we will normally recommend them they apply for the undergraduate directly, because there is always a chance, if their portfolio is strong enough, they will get the place. But if not, there is always a recommendation for them to take the foundation instead. So I think foundation, there are different things that students need to look at. A lot of the students take a foundation program without needing to take the foundation program specifically just on their skills. It's maybe because they haven't made up their mind on their career progression yet. They know they wanted to go into media, but they are not fully decided what type of media that is, whether it's photography, whether it's graphics, whether it's animation. And the foundation is an excellent program for them to work on different projects and understand that. So I don't know if my colleagues wanted to add anything else to that.
Yeah, I think just one thing to maybe add to that as well is, like Maria said, if students are not quite sure, there's nothing to stop a student applying to a foundation course and a degree course, just to kind of keep their options open. Or if they do apply for a degree course, and then after review of the portfolio and the academic qualifications, if we feel they're not quite ready yet, then quite often we will refer students to the foundation year as well. So I think the best advice really would be to check the individual university websites for your country's qualification to see whether your student has the potential to meet the entry requirements for direct entry to the degree programme. And then you can make a decision as to whether to apply for the foundation. So sometimes it's the academics, and sometimes it is just a student feels they need that extra year to develop from a personal perspective, or because they want to explore different specialisms before they choose where to specialise at degree level.
If I can add what that might look like in the performing arts, and also to add that it can go both ways. If you apply for the foundation and the panel are like, this guy's amazing or this person's amazing, we don't think they should be on a foundation. We think they should be dancing with the degree students, or their level of music theory knowledge, their songwriting, their musicianship is all degree level. They're not going to offer you the foundation because it's not an effective use of your time, and it's not the right balance for the program. So you might find that even if you've applied for something, you're offered something different, even if you've not applied for that. Schools will try and make it fit. Similarly, you might find that it's not necessary in all instances to put every possible course you would consider on a UCAS form. It might be that a school can move things around a little bit, particularly with small specialist schools. Check that out. An actor, for example, foundation acting is one that is offered a lot to people who've applied for degree level acting. This is not just because there isn't enough space on the degree, it's because the drama tuition in a high school environment is not the same as professional training. It's not an easy step to make, and not everybody will be ready to make it. But what a foundation in acting can do is again back to that bridging qualification term. It bridges the level between stuff they've done at school and them being ready for degree level studies. And then they might go on to do that at the same school they did the foundation, or they might go on to do it somewhere else. But yeah, as to how do you know? Well, often you won't know until after you've applied and auditioned, because the panel won't know until after they've seen your audition or after they've seen your portfolio, because it's not about academics when it comes to a creative foundation. It is about those creative skills.
I think also to add to that, some of the universities will also offer a one-to-one portfolio review before the students apply. So that's a very good point to also have a look at the level of that portfolio and get some constructive feedback about where the student could be and at what level. And that's something that counsellors or students can inquire directly with the university, so that can be organized for them as well. You're on mute, Jenny.
Oh dear, you'd think you'd learn after this long of learning from using Zoom. But hopefully that answered the question about the foundation course and whether or not to apply for one. Does anyone have any other questions at all?
There was another question on the panel of somebody interested to apply directly for the second year of the degree instead of the first year. So I replied to that one on the chat already, but I don't know if you guys wanted to add anything else from your own unis there.
Oh, right. Yes, I see that one. So yes, with a US associate's degree, then yes, absolutely, you can be considered for advanced entry. But I think as Katie and Adrian have said, then it will depend on matching what you have previously studied with what is covered in the first year of a course, and whether they feel that you've sufficiently covered that to be successful at the second year. Because of course, we never ever want to put a student in a position where they might not be successful.
I think also to add to that is the notion that in the UK, the idea of a degree being one program of continuous learning is very strong, rather than sort of building blocks of learning, which can be quite separate from each other and can be sort of built up to create a degree. It doesn't work that way in the UK, and that's why it's so important that the curriculum, if you do want advanced standing, that the curriculum that you present with is matched on to what has gone before on the degree that you're applying to, so that the university can be sure that you're going to be able to cope with second year study, and that you're going to be able to thrive with it and not struggle because you haven't done the first year. You might have done something else at just a higher level, but if you're not able to cope with that kind of theory and you don't have those skills, you will struggle in the second year. So, when it comes to something like an associate degree, yes, you may well be offered second year entry, but it depends what you've studied. If you've studied mathematics, for example, and you want to do fine art, that might not be possible. But if the degree that you've studied before is very close and the curriculum is quite close, then it may be possible.
I think unless anyone has any other questions at all, then we'll finish there. And I think I've just moved to the last slide so everyone can see the sessions that we have coming up. I think these are now tomorrow's sessions that we've put on there. Does anyone have any other questions at all? Sorry, you didn't get to do your slide, Maria.
That's okay. I think just an open invitation to the ones of you left in here, if there is any other questions or anything that you wanted to take outside of here, just be in touch with any of us by email. We got all of our contact details in there. So we will be more than happy to, take forward anything else that you want to discuss more specifically, or organize other sessions, or whatever you guys need in order to support your students, really. That's what we are here for.
Absolutely. I've just popped back there to the contact details so you can get those down. Thank you very much for joining us. I really hope it was useful. And as Maria said, we will be sending out the recordings of the presentations. And do feel free to contact us if you have any follow-up questions at all. And thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Oh. I was about to say, I think we're alone now, but then I just heard that in my head, and
they were off quick, weren't they?
No,
yeah.
You know what? I just suddenly thought halfway through that, I realized
it's still recording. I think it's still recording. You may want to stop the recording.
Is that? There we go.